Alright, welcome back. Today we're doing our first colourwork block. This is going to be the easiest colourwork block of them all. Not that any of them are hard. However, this one here is called Pathway 1. Pathway 1 does definitely imply that there's more than one pathway block. You can call this horizontal pathway, you can call it anything you like, but basically what we've got from our cast on edge, we've got 20 rows in our first shade. Now the shade that I'm using here is called mustard, but you can go with a tan shade, you can go with a beige, you can go with a green, anything you like that is in the same colorways as we've got. So we've got yellow tones, we've got green tones, either of those are going to work, or brown tones are going to work in this to give you your overall project look. Now in the middle we've got this grey section here of our pathway. You don't have to use grey if you don't want to. You can choose to use a darker brown, like this could be a tan, this could be a darker brown. Either way, this is going to form a pathway. That's all I'm going to say at this point. This block here has 40 stitches, so we're going to cast on 40 stitches using this shade here. For me is mustard, or we're going to, it's whatever shade you want for this part of the block. We're going to cast on 40 stitches. So I'm going to cast on 40 stitches and meet you back here. Right, here we are with 40 stitches. The first thing we're going to do is just like every other block. I'm wondering why I'm still saying it at this point for every other block, but just in case you're choosing to skip some and just make others, we're going to knit the first 4 rows. Other than row 1 and our last cast off row, we're going to be slipping the first stitch of each other row, and we're just going to knit all the way to the end. So the first row I'm just going to knit all the way across. Rows 2, 3 and 4, I'm going to slip the first stitch, knit all the way across, and this is going to create our border along the edge, which does help to keep things a little bit straighter. Again, this finished block is 20 by 20. I'm just using a granny square blocker here to hold mine in place. I have not wet blocked mine yet. I do know that if I wet block them, I'm going to be able to get them to be a much better shape, but what I'm hoping to do is just show you what's possible without wet blocking, because I do know that a lot of you at this time of the year are in winter, and I'm not going to do any wet blocking in winter, let's be completely honest. None of us are. It takes too long for everything to dry. So I'm just hoping that I can stretch block it, and I do think that's going to come out nicely, because the ones that I've left in my blocker have come out nice and square. So I'm going to knit the first 4 rows and create this border, and then meet you back here for the stockinette. Alright, so we've got our first 4 rows here. Now we're going to work on the stockinette section. Now what we're going to do here is, as we have done on several others, we're going to be slipping the first stitch, knitting 3, working across, knit on our front side, and then to the last 4, knitting the last 4. Of course, it's knit all the way across when it's the front side. When it's the reverse and we're on the purl side, or the wrong side, what we're going to do is we're going to slip the first stitch, knit the next 3, then we're going to purl all the way across to the last 4. When we get to the last 4, we're going to knit those last 4 stitches. Now what we're doing here is that this section here is 20 rows, this section is 20 rows, and this section is 20 rows. This is why I'm saying that this is the easiest of all of our colourwork sections in this project. So we've done 4, which means we've got 16 rows with the stockinette in the middle section. It's a really easy task to get it done. Again, front side, slip the first stitch, and we are just knitting all the way across. When we get to the reverse side, as we have done on all the others so far, every time we've had a stockinette section, we're going to knit the first, slip the first stitch, knit 3, purl across to the last 4. We're going to knit those last 4 stitches, and then we're done. So we're going to do that for 16 rows, or until we've got 20 rows completed. I'm sure I've said this in one of the blocks, but I'm not sure I've said it in a while. The easiest way to find out which row you're up to, no matter which block you're working on, is to count our border stitches here. Each one of these bumpy rows represents 2 rows, because we can count just the reverse. So 1, 2, that's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 16 rows total, because each of these is a reverse row. So here we go. We're going to continue knitting across, Not that you necessarily need to see me knit yet again. One day I'm going to realise that I can probably just say knit the first 5 rows, but not every block is the same. We are going to be getting some more changes coming up to our blocks later on. This is just our first one that's got different colour work. We're on our last 4. So the last 4 of every block are always knit stitches. Then we turn our work to the reverse side. We slip our first stitch. We knit 3. And then we're going to purl across to the last 4 stitches on the row. Now this finished project, you see, I'm thinking I'm going to need to make several of these, because the further I get into it, the more I realise I want one all for myself. You are going to be able to use this in many different ways. You can easily find somebody to give this away to. It's going to be a very, very cute project at the end. And I'm going out on a limb here, but I'm going to say it's multifunctional. Well, not very multifunctional. It's not exactly a Swiss Army knife. It's still a knit project. But it does serve more than one function, as well as the fact that if you don't get the required number of blocks made up, you're okay. There are other projects that you can make. As long as you've made one of every block that's been assigned, you are going to be able to make a project. There are 25 blocks in total. There are 5 grassland blocks. That was the first one we did. There are 5 forestry blocks. That's the second one we did. There are 5 hay bale blocks. That's the third one we did. There are 4... It's either 3 or 4 of these blocks. I'm going to have to confirm it in just a moment. Right. We've got the stockinette section working up. We're going to continue this until we get to row 21. When we get to row 21, we're going to be changing over to our grey yarn. I'm going to knit up this section here, and then I'm going to join you at row 21. Right, here we are with our 20 rows done, our 4 rows of border, our 16 rows of the stockinette with border on each side. And now we're going to change over to this grey. Now this grey for our pathway, again, you can use whatever shade you really want. It can be a dirt pathway, or it can be, why am I breaking that when I've got scissors right here? Okay, so first thing we're going to do is just disconnect your yellow yarn. We are coming back to it obviously, but for now we're just going to disconnect it. This section here is 20 rows, but they're not just 20 rows of the pattern. The first thing we're going to do is we're just going to knit all the way across. Right, let's just push that out of the way for the moment. It's been so windy today. I mean, not that it matters, but it's just been so windy. I'm over it. Right, so we're just going to knit all the way across this row in grey. Now, it's important that we're doing this on the good side or the front side, because on the other side we end up with this row of grey bobbles. When we get to the other end of this pattern, it'll become apparent why the row of grey bobbles bothers me. Right, okay, so we're just going to knit all the way across this first row. Now the pattern here for our pathway, if I bring this back into shot, is basically to knit, to purl, to knit, to purl, to knit, to purl, and then those stitches lining up with purls and knits on the next one, and then it offsets, so it's kind of like a little 2x2 checkerboard. It's a really easy texture to master. It's a really effective texture. I like using it quite a lot, actually. I may link a pattern to Sheepy the Sheep, great name, I know, which I use this pattern for, well, this texture for quite frequently. All right, okay, so this pattern here, we've got 2 knits, 2 purls, 2 knits, 2 purls, and then offset on the other rows, 2 purls, 2 knits, 2 purls, 2, you know. So how are we going to do this? we start this pattern on the wrong side. So the first thing we're going to do, as usual, we are going to slip the first stitch, knit 3. Then what I want is to have a purl stitch running down here the whole way, just to create a little bit of a dent on either side of our pattern. So we're going to purl 1. Then we're going to go into our pattern. So what we're going to do from here is we're going to knit 2, we're going to purl 2, knit 2, purl 2. Now we're going to continue this pattern all the way over to the last 5 stitches of the row. When we get to the last 5 stitches of the row, we're going to purl 1 and we're going to knit the last 4 that create our border. So let's just get across there. So how have you all been doing? So this block here, there are 3 of these in total that you'll use for the final project, which, you know, so far I think this is the one that takes, is it the longest? It's the one that takes the longest based solely on the fact that you've got ends to darn in. It is the easiest of our colour work blocks. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 more colour work blocks after this one. So now we're up to the last 5, so that's a purl 1, and then we're knitting 4. Right, now I'm just going to pull those little tails and tighten it up. Okay, so as I move and bump my tripod. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go across this row. So we're going to slip 1 and we're going to knit 3. That takes care of our initial border. Then we're going to knit 1 more for our edge. Now we're going to follow the pattern here. So in this case, we're going to purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, and purl 2. Now we're going to just complete this on the end of this row, because I don't want to tell you how to suck eggs, but it feels like I'm in the process of telling you how to suck eggs at the moment. Let's just push that away, because the downside of filming from above is that I'm really unsure as to whether or not things are staying in focus. I've filmed, this is tutorial 4? This is the 4th one that I filmed for this series, top down. And I haven't actually checked my footage, which is now causing me to have a slight panic. And then we're just knitting these last 5 stitches on the needle. Okay, here's where our pattern comes in, because we've got our knit 2 purl 2s all the way across the row. So now we need to alternate it. So we start the same way, slip 1, knit 3, then we're going to purl this next stitch. Now we're going to do the opposite of what's going on here. So last time we were on this side, we did a knit 2, purl 2. This time we're going to go purl 2 and then knit 2. And we're just going to continue that the whole way across the row. So in our grey rows, we have a total of 20 grey rows in all. There are only 9 blocks. So 9 of these blocks going up. So there's 18 rows are in this blocked pattern. But there's 20 rows altogether, because our first row through here, that was just a straight knit row, and we're going to have a straight purl row with some knits on the end. when we get to our last one. So there are 18 rows of this pattern. So once you see that what we're doing to create the pattern, it's just 2 rows where our knit 2, purl 2 line up, almost as if we were making a rib. And then it's 2 rows where it's creating the alternating checkerboard. So here we go. Sometimes I find the sound of knitting needles really soothing. And then there are other times where, particularly because of the way that I knit, and I have tried to learn the continental way, but my brain goes English knitting. I end up dropping my knitting needles all the time on the table. It makes a terrible noise. Okay, so the 4th row of our checkerboard pattern is to just match up the stitch types of what we've just done so that we end up with a little checkerboard. So we're going to start the usual way. Slip 1, knit 3, knit 1, just so that we get that little line going all the way through. Now we're going to knit 2, purl 2, and we're going to repeat that knit 2, purl 2 all the way across to the last 5 stitches. So I'll just do that many there. Now if we have a look at what we've got, get rid of that yarn so you can see a little bit better. Puts it straight back there. We've got our purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, and then in the next section we've got at the start of our checkerboard that goes knit 2, purl 2, knit 2. We can see that starting to form. Right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to do 18 rows so that we get 9 repeats of this checkerboard. All right. What I might do is complete my checkerboard, and then we'll go through this last colour change bit here to get back into the gold on this pathway block. All right, so we finished the 18 rows of this pattern here to create the checkerboard, and now we've got our last row of the grey. So what we're going to do with this row is much like where we had this first initial row of grey that was just straight knit stitches here, we're going to have another one there, but because we're on the reverse this time around, it's going to be our border knit stitches, purl stitches, and then our border stitches again at the other end. So let's just push that aside, and here's what we're going to do. I mean, you can probably figure it out for yourself, and at this point, you know, this might be an irrelevant part of the tutorial. You've probably already done this. Yes, Kat. So we're going to knit 4, then we're going to purl all the way across to the last 4 on the row. All this is doing is just meaning that we don't have to do another half part of the pattern, and we're also not changing to yellow on a row where we're going to end up with ridges in yellow, in particularly our border area. This just here just sort of sinks the pathway in a little, not a lot, not that it matters too much. I mean, it's a knit project. It's not like anything really matters too much. We're doing this for fun. We're having a cute time. You know, purling across. Purling, purling, purling. Here we go. Right, and we're very nearly at the end. Here we go. Right, 4 stitches before the end. And we are going to knit the last 4. Right, so that means that we have now completed 40 rows. So what all that remains of this particular square, I'm just going to cut off my grey yarn, and that can now go away. What we're now going to do is just complete this section here. So we've got 16 rows of the border with the stockinette and the border at the other side, and then we've got 4 rows of knit stitches followed by a casting off. Again, as I've said in all these videos so far, I have not wet blocked any of the squares so far. What I'm doing is I'm just going to get them to get themselves to square on this granny square blocker before I decide whether or not I'm going to do a wet blocking. And of course, the one advantage of these spikes of doom is that the cat doesn't like to sit in the middle of the spikes of doom, do you? But you are being very needy and photobombing. I've just said to the good people that you don't want to sit there, and now you just want to prove me wrong, or at least you just want to put one paw there. If nothing else, this one square has been blessed by the cat. All right, so if you would like to complete the rest of this block, and I will see you tomorrow with the next instruction.